A couple of you have mentioned 80/20, and some of the emails on 80/20 were extremely divisive, talking about pandering to Latinos, tax on Obama, tax on affirmative action. I think as people of color, we need to come together through this election. There's been a lot of perceptions by non-Latinos saying, well, Latinos are voting for Clinton because they've got problems with blacks. I think it's important that we're voting for someone. It's less important who we vote for than how we vote, and I think we have to be positive. So I think people of color really come together. I'm really happy that AAA Fund denounced 80/20's tactics on that. My question is on we know the margin was 52-42. Could the panel comment on what they think, if you took a survey of Californians at 8 o'clock last night, whether it would be closer than 52-42 or greater than 52-42, given the time people voted a month earlier?
Did most people hear most of that? Yes? Say no, you didn't? Okay, we'll just jump right to the answer.
Are you asking about the effectiveness or accuracy of polling, or about the 30-day voting window, or both?
What California Democrats would vote, if they all voted today, would it still be 52-42?
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't know how to answer that. One of the things that we have is this 30-day. We now have 30 election days, right? And it has skewed things enormously. We talked about the high percentage of people who vote by mail, and so you have people who, in this race, were voting for candidates who got out in the subsequently. Obama was perceived to have a lot of momentum at the end. I'm not sure how much of that is real and how much of that is self-fulfilling prophecy on the part of the press. And when you talk about polling, you know, polls are real difficult. As time goes on, they get more and more difficult because 2/3 of all the calls placed by a phone bank, whether it's for volunteers or a poll, are greeted by a machine. And more and more people have cell phone numbers, and so it's very hard to measure any of this. I expected a long night last night. Obviously, it was over early. The only thing I can conclude, we've talked about how Latinos voted overwhelmingly for Clinton, Asian Americans voted overwhelmingly for Clinton. But one of the suspicions I have, and it gets back to something the governor was saying about the Obama race, is that they're getting away with something, and I don't mean this in a bad way, that they're not getting called on something that's going on here. And that is that Obama's base is easy, notwithstanding the fact that, as the governor noted, that they're not doing it perfectly, is very easy to mobilize for caucuses. And I think that Clinton's base is much more likely to be a bunch of people who show up and vote but don't have any interest in going to caucuses. And what's not being reported is that a lot of these surprise victories that are being attributed to Obama, and there were 4 states yesterday where this is true, are not primaries, they're caucuses. And what Obama is doing is mobilizing his base in very small, bite-sized places where he can make a big difference in a caucus situation. And if you look at the big primaries, I think you're getting a different reading. So bottom line, I think probably what happened in California yesterday is consistent with what would have happened over time and probably happen in the near future.
I just wanted to add something about 80/20. I think it's really important for emerging communities to all work together. And a few of the emails that 80/20 sent out did cause us some distress. And you know, this is where it's really important for leaders to talk, because especially in emerging communities and immigrant communities, community leaders have much more influence over their communities than in other settings. And so this is a case where you definitely have to continue in dialogue.
You had a good question, though. I do believe the fact that the Super Tuesday, in particular in California, such a large state, which is 1 week after February, had a decided favor both McCain and Clinton, because of the better known, better organized at that time. If we'd been the first Tuesday in March, we might, in fact, see a different outcome.
If I could just say something about the racial comments of 80/20. I also am really distressed by that, and I think that the whole strength of Obama's campaign as well as of Clinton's campaign was the coalition politics. And it was extremely counterproductive and ugly for 80-20 to say those things. It was also kind of ridiculous because in the end they accepted Obama's 6 yes questions. So I think that I think they can get a little carried away and they have to be called on the carpet for it. It's not right, and it's important for all of us to condemn that kind of thing. And you know what? You have reminded me. I'm going to talk to them about this because it was really ugly.
Just a couple more comments on several subjects. And I think each community has their 80-20 type. I mean, the way that you take them on or you ignore them, because I think the more you talk about them, the more important they feel. And in terms of leaders and endorsement, had Giuliani become a viable candidate, I think you would see a lot of Asian Republicans supporting Giuliani. I think because of Michelle Steele, and all the Republican elected officials, and they had fundraiser for him. He came to Chinatown and all that stuff. And I think that created the positive image. One more thing about the Asian community and how they vote, and apparently one of the problems in yesterday's election was decline to state voters, and it just is first of all they had the right to vote on each party, except this time the Republican for the first time would let them vote. And in Asian community, at COS, when we do voter outreach education, we always remind them, because Asian, it turned out that had a higher percentage of decline to states, because they don't really, most Asians don't really feel, comfortable in belonging to any political party. In the back country, belong to a political party is not necessarily a good thing. So decline to state is really the safest, and the way they're allowed to vote in either parties. I think that is something that in the Asian community they do a lot, and I don't think you get too many problems Asian not knowing how to vote, at decline to state, because I think there's a lot of education out there.